We're recording. All right. Well, welcome. My name is Erik from Punk Globe Magazine. I'm here to interview Steve Ignorant from the anarcho-punk band Crass, the Steve Ignorant Band, and Steve Ignorant's Slice of Life, among many other things. Welcome. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. A little bit cold, but I'm not going to get into the centigrade and Fahrenheit thing, but it's cold.
Well, we actually talked about that. I think I figured it out. So it's be about
Yeah.
35 degrees here, which for us would be cold, but you would be quite pleasant, I think. If
Okay, I'll believe you. Thousands wouldn't, but there you
that's the best, that's as far as I could take it. So
go.
yeah, I'm really excited today. I always think of when I think of Crass, I always think of the band Crass, but it was almost more of an like an ideology or something. It was almost bigger than just a punk band, and I say that in there's two examples I always think of. One is I have a friend who I lost contact with for a few years, and then I ran into him one day, and I saw this guy with big bushy gray hair and reading a book, and I noticed on the back of his hand he had the Crass logo tattooed. And I was like,
Yeah,
"Hey, Deke." He's like, "Erik, what's up?" And we hadn't seen each other in ages, but people do the black flag tattoo in their arms and stuff like that. But the only place I've ever seen Crass tattoo on your hand, that's like a whole nother level,
mm,
you
yeah,
know. And it's like like a lifetime political statement.
yeah, yeah. There's something about that logo that is. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere on people's bodies.
Yeah.
I mean, the beautiful thing was that when Dave King, who died a few years ago now, a couple of years ago, um, he designed a logo, and I put it up on social media. Old Dave King, who designed the Crash logo, and everyone sent in photos of their Crash tattoos and all this. I mean, there's one of a bloke flying an aeroplane with a Crash tattoo on his arm. I'm like, get the fuck out! Yeah, some bloke who plays in an orchestra, a symphonic orchestra with Crash cufflinks, and it's just and that was so beautiful to see that it's sort of like almost like the symbol doesn't belong to Crash the band; it belongs to everybody now, and
Yeah.
I really like that. I mean, I obviously someone like I don't know, who can I think of, but some corporation got hold of it and started using it, and then I'd go for them.
Yeah.
But people just doing it, if they want to do it to me, it belongs to everybody. You know,
Yeah, I think it's amazing, and it's I always think of that. And then the other thing I think of is, so I grew up in a small town in the Midwest of the United States, which is kind of like halfway between here and nowhere.
right?
And I
Go on, what's
remember
it called?
very cold. Yeah, it would make where
What?
you're living now seem
No,
warm.
what? No, what is the town called?
Oh, Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Right, easy for you to say. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
No, it's just the best way to think of it. It's north of Chicago, south of Canada.
Okay, right, thank you. I got you. Right.
Yeah, it's so. And I remember as a kid, there was one record store that used to get punk albums, and I remember seeing Crass, and hearing Crass. It was one of those things that was it made me think, it made me pause, it made me stop, it made me reflect, and in a way that a lot of music didn't do. And I remember at around the same time, and somewhere I still have it. I have this Crass button that I wore through pretty much my entire childhood. That was the broken machine gun.
Oh, yeah, the broken gun. Yeah,
Yeah, with peace equals anarchy or anarchy equals peace, I forget. But I just remember the profundity of that, and how it allowed me a whole different lens to see the world through.
yeah,
So just something I've always been grateful for. But I also, and I think you and I might have met back in the 90s. Do you remember being in Oakland at a place called East Bay Menace Records?
yeah. But did I do a book talk thing or something?
It might have been because I think I was doing acoustic punk and I think you might have been there.
Right. Okay.
It
Oh,
was a long, long time ago,
yeah, yeah,
back when we were both
yeah.
younger. So
Thank you. Yes, yeah.
it's funny. I remember snippets of life like that. Um, well, so let's talk about. I'd love to talk about a couple things. I want to talk first about the music you're doing, where you're doing the Crass songs, and then I want to
Yeah.
circle around to the slice of life, which I've been listening to a lot and thoroughly enjoying. I mean, it's just it reminds me of a touch of how to I think torch song music, beatnik, with just a dash of the crazy world of Arthur Brown.
That's thank you so much for that. Oh, that's brilliant.
Well,
Oh, thanks for that.
it's
Oh, that's the thing that's really got me with that. Oh, you've made me a little bit emotional. Is the Torch song because
mm,
I've always wanted to. Oh, man, that's great. Oh, thank you so much.
well,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. No, it really it's rarely does music make me feel like crying and laughing and bring me
Yeah,
like such a broad emotional spectrum, and those songs really do. But so let's but I will we'll talk more about that because I want to
yeah,
get into that. But um
yeah.
so you've been doing the Crash songs for a while now, and how's that been for you getting back out there? Because I know you really, I've seen some of the videos and you completely captured the energy. But how's it been for you? How's it been with like when you interact with like a lot of the younger punks coming up and just the scene in general that you're experiencing?
Well, it's a strange thing because I thought, oh my, oh God, it's going to look like I'm flogging a dead horse, and it's going to be a sort of dreadful sort of pastiche on what Crash used to be, and it's going to look like a tribute band, and but it's not working like that. um, the thing that gets me because I've lived with those Crash songs for bloody hell 45 years or something. The minute I get on stage, I'm still putting the same emotion and anger and feeling into it that I did then. That's the most important thing for me is that I can't pretend at it because the awful thing is that the Crash songs are still relevant today. You've just got to change certain names of politicians, and here we are. That's the sad thing about it. The good thing about it is that people still want to listen to it, and I'm still able to do it. Now, the moment I do feel that I'm becoming an embarrassment to myself and other members of the band, then I will stop it. But until then, it's for me, it's fine, because I think what we're doing, and it's not only me, it's with the band I've got at the moment, who are also the members of Slice of Life, apart from Jay Bagnall, the drummer. Um, is that they've injected something into those songs and they've taken them and they've not really changed much, but somehow they've made it their own and they've put their own stamp on it and they've made it fresh for me, even. So for the first time in my life, I'm actually looking forward to performing Crash songs, if you see what I mean. Um, well, not the first time in my life, but um, and that sort of pushes me forward from what they've done. And they've actually taken it and made it accessible for I don't know all generations. It's amazing and part of me doesn't understand why it's working, and part of me is understanding. Yeah, I understand why it's working. It's just this very bizarre sort of thing, and as long as it works, I'll be out there doing it. And if it makes someone think differently, or if it makes someone smile, or it makes someone cry for a good reason, that's the good reason for doing it. But yeah, it's very. I don't feel embarrassed doing it. You know.
Yeah, I love it. I particularly I was listening to the recording of Do They Owe Us a Living, and just the energy was so right there, so dead on, and it just feels more relevant than ever.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people feel. Because the strange thing again, just change a couple of names of politicians in there, and those songs are still relevant and they're timeless. And that's the sad thing about it, really,
Yeah.
because by now we should all be living in, blue skies, and world peace, and everyone's smiling, and no one's poor, and everyone's happy, and are we fuckers like still the same old crap that we had fucking hell.
No, but it's funny. I always kept thinking like it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better, and then it gets stranger and scarier and more bizarre and more. It's like best way I can describe it, I feel like we're living in this pre-apocalyptic state, and we don't know how to turn the bus around.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like it's getting so mad. Certainly in England, it's like, well, this is so mad. When's it? It's going to blow up in a minute. It's just going to explode. What the? Just what are these people think? And people are just going, oh yeah, well, what can we do about it? And what can I do about it? Scream down a microphone. Steve, why do you still do crash songs? Because of those fucking bastards. That's why. If they'd fucking leave, let us have a lovely life, I wouldn't have to do it, and I could retire at the age of 65 years old.
I love it too because it's like it makes me think of when I was young once. I said to somebody, "Well, at least I have a job," and he goes, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I was like, "Whoa, what?" He goes, "No, you deserve more than that." And to me, that's what I hear in those songs, and I think people need to hear that. They need to hear that, like, because I think people have gotten used to a certain level of complacency and apathy, and it just becomes
Yeah, and I think that
hard.
yeah, and I think that's the whole thing. People, when I'm doing interviews, people often ask me, oh, Steve, what's the thing about punk rock and all this, and I'm like, look, I've never been that sort of advocate of never trust a hippie. I've never been a hippie in my life, but I think even the hippie movement did good stuff. I mean, the fashion was dreadful, but there you go.
The
But
architecture was worse, though.
oh god, yeah, don't start on that. But and the dancing, oh god, just sit down, mate. Um, but they did really good, certainly in England. If it weren't for the hippies, they started up a clinic for drug addicts. They started up a housing centre. They started up a place you could go to find out about, if you're arrested, the law and drop-in
Mhm.
centres and things like. So they're trying it. And people always say, "Oh, yeah, but it weren't." No, the thing about punk and hippie is that hippies said we'd like a better life, please, and punk and Crash said, "No, we want a better life, and if you don't give it to us, you're going to get a fucking kick in the head."
Yeah.
And that's the difference. It's like, don't take their slimy excuses. And that's always, I will always, question. Won't take what I don't believe a word they're saying.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I'm curious, are there any Crash songs that just don't resonate with you anymore, or just that
Yeah.
feel different?
Yeah, there's some that I don't do. I mean, there's one, uh, Hurry Up Gary, the Parsons farted. That one was just like what we call a polyfiller. It just fills in, for me. Although at the time it was relevant. It was about a journalist, the two journalists who hated Crash with a vengeance. Um, and there's a few others in there that just don't do it for me anymore. I can't think off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Um, can't think, but and there's some that we've tried live on stage and it didn't work for some reason,
yeah,
and I don't know why. I don't know why. So
yeah. No, I get that because I know there's songs that I've played over the years where one day it doesn't
um,
speak to me. I don't
yeah,
feel it.
yeah. I mean, there is one song that I refused to. I performed it once live on stage, and it was called "Sheep Farming in the Falklands," and it was about the Falklands War. And I didn't like the lyrics at the beginning. And Penny Rambo explained it to me, and I was like, no, I still don't get it. It just didn't feel right to me. And it, we were performing it, and then the news came through that people had actually died in the Falklands War. And that was the point when I said, right, people have died. I'm not singing this. I'm not performing this song anymore. And that was it. So that's one song that I will never ever perform again.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do you ever find yourself changing lyrics over time, and they just kind of naturally evolve into something other than what they started out as?
yeah, all the time. What I've noticed, I'm putting it down to old age, but for some reason, I mean, I wrote the bloody thing, but I was living as we was talking about. Sometimes I forget what verse comes when.
Oh, I
I
have
know
that
the
all the
first
time.
one, mate. It's because I know the first one is 6 lines long, and then you got do as living, do as living, but then it's like, uh, is it they don't want me anymore, or the living that is owed to me? And I'm always so I tried the microphone now to the audience, and then I'm like, okay, that's what it is. And And with bloody revolutions as well. Um, will you indoctrinate the masses to serve the new regime? Is it that one first, or is it? And what about those people who don't know which one? So again, I'll go. My catch the audience. It's that one. So yeah, it's because you have to remember that one Crash song is like an Oasis album. The amount of words in it. So and I've got a head full of them.
Yeah.
Even the ones that Eve Libertine used to sing, I can still remember some of those lyrics. For God's sake, and it's like, oh. But can I remember what I did yesterday? Nope. Do I know how to rewire my house? No. Could I rewire a plug? No.
It's funny as I've gotten older, I create a diary only because I want to know what I did the day before,
Yeah.
and it's the only way I'll remember.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah. Post-it notes everywhere.
Oh, I have a stack this big of my to-do lists, but then I forget to
Yeah,
look at the to-do list, and then I'm like, oh, I should make a to-do list. But it
yeah,
the cool thing is, and I think this is and I see this with a lot of my friends, like as people in the punk movement. As we get older, we become more active, we become more engaged in ways that I didn't see generations before us do.
yeah, yeah.
Which is kind of exciting for me. But now one question I have for you, and this was a question from a friend. He was wondering, were you actually banned from the Roxy?
Yes,
Okay.
and yeah, quite understandably. I mean, everyone's heard the story, but I'll say it very quickly.
Yeah,
We played the Roxy before, and that went down really well. But this time we were playing the Roxy. How we were playing the Roxy. So me and Andy Palmer went around a friend's house, and we got pretty stoned.
yeah.
On grass, as it was called in those days. And it weren't skunk in those days, but immediately we get stoned. And then we were drinking, not a good mixture. Penny Rambo turned up. He'd been drinking um, two huge bottles of Chinese wine. That was very cheap. So everyone was just hammered by the time we got to the sound check. And I remember being so ill, I had to go outside and throw up in the street. And usually when that used to happen, when I was that age, that was time for me to go home to bed, but I couldn't. I still had to do a bloody gig. And the sound was so bad. And anyway, I was singing one song, Penn was playing the other. So I swapped to play his song and he swapped at the same time. So we were still out of sync. So, and they switched us off. And Feel Free put his elbow through a speaker. And Penny Rambo went to the front and said, "No, this is something or other protest. No, no," and sort of the audience joined in. But I don't blame them for banning us. We must have sounded pretty bloody awful. I mean, if ever there was a recording of it, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't want to hear it. Ugh. So yeah, we were banned from Roxy, but there you go.
All right. Well, here's another question for you. Somebody was wondering, were you ever an official member of Conflict or more of a guest member? And they were particularly thinking about a nation of animal lovers and turning rebellion into money.
Yeah, well, no, I officially a member. Doing To a Nation of Animal Lovers, no, I was just a guest vocalist and I wrote some lyrics for them. And I was quite happy to do that because they were my mates. Turning Rebellion into Money was meant to be a one off, but then after that, I sort of enjoyed it. Um, and I sort of stuck with them.
Hmm.
Um, but I never saw myself as a sort of a member of Conflict. I was always saw myself as Steve Ignorant doing things with Conflict. And the reason I left Conflict in the end was because I was even at that time, thinking I'd like to do some sort of stuff on acoustic guitar or do something a bit orchestral, da, 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 da. And I didn't feel that I could push, because to me, Conflict was Colin and Paco's band. And I didn't feel that I had the right to sort of
Hmm.
try and push that band towards something. So then I left. Um, so, and also because after Conflict set was Crash songs, and that
Wow.
didn't feel right either at that time. So yeah,
Man, that makes sense.
So going back to the original question, Steve, all over the fucking houses. No, I didn't see myself as a full-time member of Convict.
But it was a great segue to Steve Ignorant's Slice of Life, which
What? A great what?
segue into Steve
Segway.
Ignorant's Slice of Life.
What's a segue?
Segue, kind of a pathway. It's kind of like
Oh, okay, right.
you guided us to that point. And
Oh, I see. Right, right,
as you
right,
were saying, I
right.
wanted to
Okay,
do something different, and I when I heard Slice of Life, it hit me at a really deep level, and
right.
it hit me almost the same way like the original Crass did, where it was just like, okay, this is something really special that I'm hearing. It was just that, I don't know, that moment where something really incredible is happening, and that's what came out to me. So what inspired you to go that route and do that? Because I'm so happy you did.
I don't know. I'd always, I think, because I'd grown up listening to obviously David Bowie. Obviously, when I was 12, Skinheads first came out in England. We're talking 1968, 69. Don't believe that rubbish about Skinheads came in 69 because of Sham 60. It was 1968 and even earlier. Um, so I was listening to a lot of ska and a lot of reggae, the Who, the Kinks, and again listening to a lot of Burt Bacharach, Joni Mitchell, all of these different influences that I wasn't able to sort of put into song doing craft songs, if doing crafts. I mean, I could put in sort of references to David Bowie, like they used to call me Sweet Thing, which was a reference to his song Sweet Thing.
Okay.
Um, so little things like that I could do. But so with Slice, it was like, well, and I honestly I didn't know what to do, and I was even thinking about it. I think just after Crash finished, that would have been 1980. Crash finished 1984, so around about 1985, 1986, I was already thinking about, oh, I'd like to do something that's different. And what do I like? Yes, I do like Torch songs. I do like the film Cabaret. I do like Clockwork Orange. How do I mix all this together?
Yeah.
But at that time, I didn't know, because of the nature of who Crash were, I didn't know any bloody musicians.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
that's the strange thing because, like, now we look at me, it's like, well, Steve Egan from Crash, and it's like, yeah, but back then, when Crash finished, I couldn't call up Paul Weller, and go, here, Paul, thanks for doing a single together, mate, because I didn't have his phone number, I didn't know how to get in touch, so I was at a complete loss. So it took all that time, thinking about it and thinking about it until I found, stumbled across the right musicians, which happened to be Carol and Pete, and Jay, now, that I was able to sort of go in the studio and actually put down, and they were able to interpret what is in my head because I can't write music. They was able to do what I sort of wanted.
Also, that was kind of like a collaboration where you just expressed what you wanted to express. Did you basically like, these are the lyrics, this is what I'm looking for, and then they.
Yeah, I mean, I knew even during Crash, because the thing with Crash was like, right, we don't talk about I, we talk about we.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay. So for example, I couldn't write a song about, oh, I don't know, the song I do about depression, SAD, sad. I couldn't, no way I could do that it wouldn't fit with Crash
Right.
what we were doing, or it would be jazzed up, or it'd be avant-garded up by Penny Rambo. I'm not fucking having that because they're great lyrics. Um, so yeah, but I mean, the thing with Slice is that the word it's got to mean something, and I think what I'm trying to approach, jumping the gun here a bit, with Slice of Life is that I'm now talking to people of my generation in their 50s or their 60s, and this is what happens when the pimples burst and the band splits, and what do you have after that? Well, what have you got to look forward to? Well, the ingrowing toenail, the creaking joints, the having to go to the toilet every so often, waiting in line for your medication at the doctor's, blah blah blah. You know, forgetting things, having to wear glasses, all the rest of it. And oh my God, look at all these wrinkles on my face. That's what you've got to look forward to, you know. But I'm gonna, you know, but I don't think there's many people out there addressing those sort of, you know, why shouldn't someone? I mean, I know Charlie Harper's still out there banging away at it,
Hmm.
bless his heart. You know, and same as Mick Jagger and all that lot, you know. Um, but you know, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, look, this is what if you feel the same, then let's have a talk about it at the bar.
Yeah.
And that's why I sort of enjoy doing Slice. You know? And so many people come up to me and say that how much they like it, and I'm like, oh fuck for that, you know. But it's a nerve-wracking thing. It was a nerve-wracking thing to do that, you know. So
Yeah, no, it really it feels incredibly personal. I'm 54, so I think
yeah,
we're near the same age, and it did feel like you just jumped right inside me at
mm,
times,
yeah,
and I almost heard my voice in your voice.
right.
You were hitting those feelings, you were hitting those thoughts, and it felt so personal and so deep. And I'm just really glad you're making it. I mean, I think it really it speaks to me in a way that not a lot of things do. So it's
Yeah, and the strange thing that I like about it is that you know we've done quite a few gigs with Slice and Life, and we've been shoved on in front of a heavy metal band, for
mhm,
example, or a grunge band, and somehow Slice of Life still works. It's really, you know, you can put us on with anybody and it will still fucking work.
yeah,
And that's so bizarre, you know. And quite often, you know, it's very rare if at a Slice of Life gig someone doesn't come up to me and say, "Oh, you made me cry." Yeah, sorry about that, because it touches a note. But then I would have the same thing if I was to go and see, um, which is why I daren't do it, go and see West Side Story live
right.
because that those lyrics and that music when I was a kid really touched me.
Hmm.
And can I watch West Side Story without crying? No, I know what's going to happen. I know
Right.
it's oh Marina. I know it's cheesy and corny, but the music is so fantastic, and that really touched me as a kid. Um, and I think that was a big turning point for me. Hence, I was talking earlier about I wanted to do something orchestral.
Yeah.
So having seen West Side Story as a how old was I? 10 years old, and I'd never dreamt I would ever go to America. America for the English people was like, my God, it's the promised land. You know, it's fantastic. Um, and to see that, not knowing I'd ever get there, to hear that music, and then that's really stuck in my head. You
Mhm.
know, and then I discovered someone called Joni Mitchell, and I mean, I know her early stuff was, you know, but then I picked up a record of hers called Court and Spark, and I think she was starting to use orchestras and strings and things then, and that really turned me head because I was like, oh my God, this what a brilliant sound, you know. So it just goes, and Burt Bacharach, of course, you know, it's like I don't care if people out there think he's cheesy and all that sort of thing. That bloke, by Christ, you know, if I could have got in a studio and just made his coffee for him, I would have been.
No, I hear what you're saying. And that's the other thing I like about Slice of Life too, is it's there's also it's fun.
Yes. Oh yeah, you have to have a laugh. You got to, you know. Listen, you know, it's like, you know, look, I'm out for a good time now, and all the rest is propaganda.
Yeah. I'm really glad you're making. I'm curious, do you have any plans on coming to the US with any of your projects anytime soon?
Yeah, which we're trying at the moment. We're hoping to get to what's it called, that festival in Chicago, the Riot Fest.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah, we're trying to get that, and also we're trying to get on Punk Rock Bowling.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to get that because I played there with Paranoid Visions before, and but it's just it's for the at the moment it's so expensive to come there
Yeah.
because and people don't realise, Eric, you know, for us we have to get work permits, and they're like, oh, you know, something like £600. I don't know what that is in dollars,
Oh wow.
um, but let's say $600.
Right, right.
That's every person has to have one. So
Wow.
and then you got and it's like fuck me, and then you have to have you can't just go and get a work permit. No, you got to have a sponsor in America that will fuck right.
Oh, wow. I
And
didn't
then
realize it was
the
so complicated.
yeah, it really is. I mean, my God, your American security is talk about fucking go for it. Fucking hell, ins and outs of the cat's arse, as we say in England. It's like fucking hell. What's the name of your high school? We don't have high schools in England. Well, what? All right. Well, it's Robert Clack Comprehensive. Right. This is filling out the form. Address of your high school. Fuck me, it was 50 something years ago. Smith Street, Dagenham. Accepted. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then present a photograph of yourself. Okay. So I send a photograph, a passport photograph. Not acceptable. Right, fuck yeah. Picture of me with my head sort of turned to one side, so you can see my right, my left ear, so it's almost in profile with believe it or not, a bottle of Coke in front of me. Have that one. Yeah, accepted. Get the fuck out. It's like, and then when you get to America and you get to immigration, what's the purpose of your visit? Well, you all fucking know, mate. I spent 2 hours down your bloody thing in London, down your embassy, and I had to answer 3 times what I was going for. I've come to play a football match. What? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, going back to the original question. Sorry, I tend to do this. Yeah, we're trying to get to America.
Yeah.
I'd like to do. I'd really like to do it, but again, it's just like cost.
Oh, no, no.
It's
Again, for what it's worth is when I go through customs in Europe, it's so easy.
yeah,
Even
yeah,
for an American coming back to the States, I can't stand going through our customs because I don't know who these people are they get to work on, but some of the experiences I've had have been just mind blowing, where it's
yeah,
kind of like I don't
and I,
even feel welcome coming back. So
yeah,
it's,
yeah. And I'll tell you what else gets me with the certainly the American security is that you see all these people and they've got all badges everywhere on these uniforms. It's like, oh my God, they must be a policeman. No, it's someone sweeping up. And they've got all these sort of official, and it's like, what the fuck? It's like, anyway.
well, part of our imperialism is getting a lot of nice uniforms. So it's
Yeah, well, look smart in uniform, always pull the skirt. When you're fucking good and proper, tell them there's a skirt. Because man is spelt big, M-I-N.
so I got a couple more questions for you. One is what contemporary art or music do you admire? Is there something that you've been coming across that really speaks to you?
What a contemporary what? Sorry.
Like contemporary radical art or music that you admire or that's really speaking to you today?
Um, well, obviously Sleaford Mods, but that's very English. Um, so I don't know if that would really translate into America.
I
Um,
actually I just heard them recently. I really enjoy them a lot.
yeah, yeah. That and there's a band from Northern Ireland, from Belfast called the Hokers, and there's just something about that band. I don't think they've released anything yet, but keep your eye open for them.
Okay.
But they're really, really good. I mean, one of their tracks, I love it so much. I even said to the lead vocalist, I went, I'm gonna steal that track. That's how much I like it. But artist wise, I'm not really into. I tend to go sort of. I don't really follow art, like paintings and stuff like that or sculptures. But do I like? Yeah, certain artists. I like George Ross. I like his stuff. So it's just yeah.
I'm curious, what are you reading these days?
At the moment, I'm reading. Uh, uh, well, I'm rereading Brighton Rock by Graham Greene. I'm gonna revisit Grapes of Wrath because I think that's a great book. And just recently, I reread On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Okay.
But I remember years and years ago, when I lived at Dale House, the Crass House,
Hmm.
there was a book there called Last Exit to Brooklyn by Hubert Selby Jr. And I've not read that for 30 something years, so I'm going to get a copy of that to reread that because that book was really inspiring for me. Last Exit to Brooklyn. To read that the way it was written, it reminded me, although it was about America, obviously, and I'd never been there yet. But to me, it could have been like me writing about growing up in Dagenham, which is more
Okay.
a working class area. So yeah,
It just kind of had a universal appeal that spoke to you.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's working class. I mean, it's very strange. I mean, like people say, "Oh, Steve, what films you like?" And I'm like, "Well, definitely the black and white English,
Mhm.
what we used to call kitchen sink dramas, Angry Young Men, and all this kind of thing." And then this film came out in 1970, whatever it was, 77, um, um, with John Travolta in it. What's it called? Staying Alive,
Saturday Night Fever?
Saturday Night Fever, right?
Yeah.
So I watched it. Everyone was taking a piss out of it because, oh, fucking, it was about disco dancing. I watched it and I was like, yeah, fucking hell, it's blah, blah, blah. And then I watched it again and I was like, well, actually, and I watched it for the third time and then I got it. And I was like, well, okay, if it weren't for the music, if you put that in black and white,
Mm.
that could have been. It's almost like one of the kitchen sink dramas. It's about a working class Italian kid working in a dead end job whose enjoyment every weekend is to go out with his mates and spend all his money disco dancing and wearing flash. What's the difference between anyone else's? And that's why I don't take the piss. And plus, I think the soundtrack to it is some of it is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
But,
Yeah. Some of that stuff. And it's funny because I think I hear music from when I was a kid that I heard all the time as a kid and I just ignored because it was in the background. Sometimes I'll hear it now. I'll be like, oh, that's actually really good.
yeah, and it's funny as sometimes it just takes time, or you hear it for what it really is. Sometimes other times it can work the other way around. I
Yeah.
mean, for example, I used to really like what's that song? Just my imagination
Oh yeah, I know I forget who that is.
running
Yeah.
away with. Well, actually, I used to like that. Yeah, just my day through my window, I watch it. Oh, it's all nice. And then I listen to other verses, and it's like. What the lyrics? Soon we'll be married and raise a family with a comfy little cottage in the country with two children or maybe three. What? I think
Just go for 2.5, make it easy.
it's
What's the difference?
yeah, but I still like it as a tune.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I think as I get older too, it's just I find that I'm a lot more open to experience and it's easier to reflect on stuff and there's a lot less ego that gets in the way of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, the weird thing is that still talking about music, I mean, I've got a friend called Gilbert and Norfolk boy, born and bred, and I went out and his thing was Frank Zappa. And he was never reading the punk thing. So I went around his house one day and I said, right, come on in, open the beers. And I read, come on, play Frank Zappa to me, explain it to me, because I
Mhm.
never sort of really listened to it. But, well, I have to say, I was pretty much astounded because it was, to me, pretty much punk rock or pretty much what Crass were doing. It's very similar. It's like, whoa, that's really weird, but whereas uh, what's it? Lou Reed and Nico's
Velvet
Velvet
Underground.
Underground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't quite get into that. It was too sort of arty, contrivey sort of thing. But Frank's I sort of got that. Um, and so now I'm not so quick to criticise, and sort of and do because there's bits in there I'm like, oh, I sort of get that.
Yeah.
So it's weird, isn't it?
When it's funny, I find that sometimes I'll hear something and if I'm expecting something else, that throws me off and I got to go back and listen to it. But also if I'm just
Yeah,
not in the right emotional state, I'm
yeah.
feeling one thing, the song's feeling something else. I'm like, yeah, it's not happening right now.
Yeah, it's like sometimes if I'm sort of a bit blue, I'll go to my garage and right, open the beers, right, put the Cockney Rejects on. Lovely, here we go. And I'm sort of moving around and all this sort of stuff. Another time I go over there and do it. Blimey, that sounds slow. And it's because of the mood I'm in. Um, and it's weird how that happens as well. And
Oh,
yeah, so yeah.
so, well, hey, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to just leave people with before we wrap this up?
No, just stay safe, stay happy, and don't let the bastards grind you down.
That's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this a lot, and it's just really cool getting to catch up over this stuff.
Nice one, Eric. It's been a pleasure, mate. Really has. So I've enjoyed it. So yeah,
Thank you.
but it's good when you do an interview and it's more like a conversation.
That's how it should be. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
so
All
oh,
right. Well, look, I'll see you later, mate.
all right. And I'm gonna just turn